In your case, Varley, you will stay in prison for the rest of your life. You will never be eligible for parole.
On June 18, 2026, a courtroom in England fell silent as two names became permanently attached to one of the most horrifying crimes the country has seen in recent memory. Jaime Varley and John Fazakerly stood before a judge to learn what the rest of their lives would look like after the death of 13-month-old Preston Davyy. The details of this case have shocked people across Britain. The public reaction has been immediate, emotional, and relentless. But while the headlines have focused on the sentences handed down inside that courtroom, a much darker reality is only beginning to unfold behind prison walls. Because for men convicted of crimes involving children, the punishment does not end when the judge leaves the bench. In many ways, that is where a completely different kind of punishment begins. What these two men are now facing inside the British prison system is something most members of the public never see, and in some cases never even consider. The next chapter of the story will take place far away from cameras, reporters, and courtrooms, and what awaits them there is enough to make even experienced prison officers uneasy. Jaime Varley, now 37 years old, received one of the rarest sentences available under English law. A whole life order. No minimum tariff. No possibility of parole. No future hearing that could change the outcome. The judge made it clear that Varley would spend the remainder of his life in prison. It is a punishment reserved for only the most extreme cases. At any given time, only a tiny number of inmates across the entire country are serving whole life orders. On June 18, 2026, Jaime Varley became one of them. His co-defendant, John Fazakerly, received a sentence of 25 years. On paper, that may sound very different. One man will eventually have a release date, the other never will. But prison is not experienced on paper. Prison is experienced day by day, cell by cell, and reputation follows a man everywhere he goes. In a case as notorious as this one, that reality matters more than most people realize. What makes this situation particularly significant is the level of attention the case has attracted. Millions of people have followed the story. News coverage has spread across the country. Social media has amplified every development. The names Jaime Varley and John Fazakerly are now known far beyond the walls of the courtroom. And that creates a problem when the prison gates eventually close behind them. Because the inmates on the inside read newspapers, they watch television, they follow major cases, and when a prisoner arrives carrying a conviction that has generated this level of public outrage, everyone knows exactly who has arrived. The prison system can attempt to manage that reality, can put protective measures in place. But history has shown that some names enter prison carrying risks that cannot easily be controlled. And what these two men are about to face may become one of the most closely watched prison stories in Britain this year. To understand what Jaime Varley is likely facing now, you have to understand something important about the British prison system. A sentence handed down in a courtroom is only one part of the story. The second part begins when the prison van arrives at the gate and the doors close behind it. That is the moment when a prisoner discovers how other inmates view the crime that brought him there. Some offenses carry a particular weight inside prison. Crimes involving children sit at the very top of that list. Prison officers know it, governors know it, and prisoners know it. That reality has existed for decades, and it continues to shape how certain inmates are managed from the moment they enter custody. For someone arriving with the level of publicity attached to the Preston Davyy case, anonymity is impossible. His face has appeared in news reports. His name has circulated across social media. The details of the case have been discussed nationwide. By the time Jaime Varley reaches a Category A prison, there is every chance many prisoners will already know exactly who he is. That creates a challenge the prison system cannot ignore. Protective measures can be introduced. Movements can be restricted. Locations can be carefully managed. But information inside prisons travels quickly. Conversations spread. Newspapers circulate. Television broadcasts reach cells. And once a prisoner's conviction becomes widely known, it rarely disappears from the attention of those around him. The likely first stage of Varley's prison experience will involve extensive monitoring and separation from the wider population. Not because prison authorities are offering special treatment, but because they understand the risks associated with high-profile offenders. Every decision surrounding his placement will be examined carefully. Yet even with those precautions, prison life can become incredibly isolating. Days begin to look identical. Routines repeat. The outside world becomes increasingly distant. For someone entering prison with no realistic prospect of release, that adjustment can feel overwhelming. The sentence itself may have been delivered in a matter of minutes, but living with it happens one day at a time. And for Jaime Varley, those days are only just beginning. The public often imagines protective custody as a form of safety. The reality is considerably more complicated. Protection inside prison frequently comes with restrictions that many people never consider. Limited interaction, reduced movement, long periods spent alone. A routine designed around minimizing risk rather than maximizing quality of life. For a newly arrived prisoner carrying national notoriety, those conditions can become a defining feature of everyday existence. Hours pass slowly. Contact with others becomes controlled. Every movement requires planning. Even simple activities that many prisoners take for granted may be approached differently when security concerns are involved. What makes Jaime Varley's situation particularly unusual is the permanence attached to his sentence. Many inmates have a future date they can focus on. It may be years away. It may be decades away. But it exists. They can measure progress against time. They can imagine life beyond prison walls. That possibility often becomes an important psychological anchor. Varley does not have that advantage. The court's decision means there is no ordinary path toward release. No approaching milestone. No countdown that grows shorter with each passing year. The structure of a whole life order creates a reality that differs fundamentally from most prison sentences. That does not mean every day will look identical forever. Prison systems evolve. Placements change. Circumstances shift over time. But the central fact remains constant. The sentence imposed on June 18, 2026 is designed to last for the remainder of his natural life. As months become years, that reality can take on a different meaning. The shock of sentencing fades. Media attention moves elsewhere. Headlines disappear. Yet the prison environment remains. The walls remain. The routines remain. Long after public discussion has ended, the practical consequences of that sentence continue every single day. This is why prison experts often distinguish between receiving a sentence and living a sentence. The first happens once. The second happens continuously. And for Jaime Varley, the process of living that sentence has only just started. John Fazakerly now enters a very different situation, although not necessarily an easy one. A 25-year sentence is finite, carries a visible endpoint. On paper, that distinction separates his future from Jaime Varley's in a significant way. One man has been told he will never leave prison. The other has been given a sentence that theoretically allows for a return to society. Yet prison life is influenced by more than numbers written on legal documents. Reputation matters. Publicity matters. The nature of an offense matters. These factors often follow prisoners wherever they go within the system. Transfers may occur. Facilities may change. But major convictions frequently remain attached to a person's identity throughout their incarceration. The Preston Davyy case attracted extraordinary public attention. Because of that, Fazakerly is unlikely to experience the anonymity that some prisoners eventually achieve. The case is simply too well known. The details are too widely reported. That visibility creates its own challenges inside prison walls. Meanwhile, Jaime Varley faces a future defined not by years but by permanence. Every prison sentence removes freedom. A whole life order removes something more. It removes the expectation of an ending. There is no final chapter waiting beyond the sentence itself. The prison becomes the final destination rather than a temporary stage on the way to somewhere else. That distinction is difficult to fully appreciate from outside the system. Most people naturally think in terms of beginnings, middles, and endings. Whole life orders disrupt that framework entirely. The future becomes smaller. The horizon becomes fixed. Time continues moving forward, but the destination never changes. For Preston Davyy, none of these developments can undo what happened. The court proceedings are over. The sentences have been imposed. The prison gates will eventually close behind both men. What follows from that point onward will unfold largely out of public view. But the consequences of those sentences will continue long after the headlines have disappeared, shaping every day that follows inside the British prison system. Preston Davyy was only a little over a year old when his life was taken away. He never had the chance to grow up, make memories, or experience the future that should have been waiting for him. On June 18, 2026, the British justice system delivered its final judgment against the people responsible. Jaime Varley will now spend the remainder of his life behind prison walls, while John Fazakerly begins a sentence that will keep him in custody for decades. What happens next will unfold largely out of public view, inside a prison system that has dealt with cases like this before. As new developments emerge and more information becomes available, I will continue bringing you every update.